All right, so we're continuing with the conversation today on the occupational therapy and the persons with visual impairments. I have with me Priya Gomes, who is an occupational therapist. Good morning and welcome.
Good morning.
How are you
Thank
this
you
morning?
for having me. I'm fine this
You look
morning.
bright, like you were excited to be here this morning.
Usually early up early in the morning.
Yeah. It's good to be up early on mornings, you know.
Yeah, you get a lot of work done.
Exactly,
Yes.
exactly. So the relationship between occupational therapy and persons with visual impairment. Let's first start by understanding what occupational therapy is.
So occupational therapy is an allied health profession where we work with persons of all ages with pretty much any type of disability, from congenital to acquired injuries or illnesses, anything that affects your ability to participate in your activities of daily living, example, bathing, dressing, feeding, your work activities or your leisure activities. So occupation, in the sense of the word, it means anything that occupies your time. So if there's any illness or disability that's affecting your ability to be independent or participate in those activities, that's where we come in.
And then we talk about persons with visual impairment, so people who have visual problems who aren't able to see properly.
Right. So, a lot of times we are very rehabilitative as opposed to being preventative to some extent. So as an occupational therapist, that's one of the things we try to do instead of just addressing an issue as it comes up, trying to work with persons with visual impairments, right? So not persons who are just born with visual impairment, but those who may acquire it, whether it's due to diabetes or some other illness, working with them to try and help them remain as independent as possible. And that may mean modifying how they do an activity presently or providing a piece of adaptive equipment so that they can remain independent doing that activity.
Okay, so let's take me for example. I wear glasses.
Right.
And if I take my glasses off, I can barely see anything around me.
Right.
Is there anything you do for people like that? Or if you wear corrective lenses, it means that you're able to carry out the functions by yourself?
Well, I mean, if it's something as simple as maybe just being fixed with a corrective lens, then depending on what has led you there, if it's something that can be controlled, then we can step in. But we're looking for more persons who, it may be a little bit more severe, or maybe they've acquired some type of illness that has now presented to themselves where they may have some partial visual loss. So we're looking at, one of the techniques we might use is a clock system, right? So in terms of, we all want to remain independent. We don't want somebody having to do something for us all the time. So a simple activity like getting ready in the morning, maybe brushing your teeth, we picture like a clock system, and so we'll have the toothbrush at, say, 12 o'clock and a glass of water at 3 o'clock, and the toothpaste is at 11 o'clock, so that we use those cues to try and help people remain independent so that it's not, a sibling or a caregiver coming to do the activity for themselves. Same thing with eating. Maybe, the glass is at 9 o'clock, your fork and knife or your spoon is at 3 o'clock, plate is at, 6 o'clock kind of thing, so that, and also maybe using utensils that may be partitioned, so that it's easier for them to be able to perform a basic task as feeding.
Yeah. And how has the success rate been with this work that you've been doing?
Well, I mean, it's really, at the end of the day, it's really up to the client.
Yeah.
Right? We can only do as much as the client is willing to do. And so not just the physical aspect of it, but we also look at the psychological, the emotional aspects that, are part of a disease or illness, right? Trying to get that person as motivated as possible to remain as independent, whether it's using adaptive equipment. So maybe with a cell phone, putting on an app that may have text-to-speech recognition. So obviously they may have difficulty reading a text message or going on to social media. But if you, add on an app that can have text-to-speech, then as they're typing, they're hearing it and able to communicate. Or maybe, for somebody who's diabetic, using a talking glucometer so that they're able to read and self-manage their diabetes, as opposed to somebody else doing it for themselves. So it's more about teaching people to either modify how they do an activity or maybe use an adaptive piece of adaptive
So
equipment.
you use the environment in which they are involved in,
Yes,
to be able to work with them to ensure that level of independence.
yes, because you want to remain independent. You want to stay at home. You know, most people, our culture is one of, you know, staying at home as opposed to just putting in a nursing home. So we try to work with the client in the environment so that they can remain as independent. And, you know, it's obviously less of a burden on family and showing family members and caregivers how to help the client remain independent.
Yeah, and is there a Facebook page or anywhere that people can go to get more information?
Yes, well, I'm also part of the Trinidad and Tobago Occupational Therapy Association. So you can find that at ttota.com or Prehab Services, Preventative and Rehabilitative Therapy Services, and that's Prehab Services on Facebook.
All right, well, thank you very much, Priya Gomes, for coming on and
Thank
chatting
you
with
for
us.
having
Very,
me.
very important conversation this morning. You know, it is always important for us when you talk about sight and vision, because a lot of people in Trinidad and Tobago and around the world are having vision problems. So it is something that we really need to address. And I think starting this conversation is very important to assist people who may require assistance in any possible way. So Priya Gomes, it was an absolute pleasure having you with us this morning.